Hi everyone, I hope all of you are doing well. So in this episode we are going to finish with writing the algorithm of purchasing an item and as well as selling the item. Now there are going to be a lot of validations that we have to check before we ensure that the user can buy an item. For example, we need to check if he has enough budget for that. So really there are going to be a lot of stuff that we are going to code throughout the process. So let's get started. Alright, so if we remember, previously we wrote the modal for purchasing an item. Now I said that this modal is going to lead for an external form that is going to ask us if we are sure that we want to buy this item. So to demonstrate that, this is exactly what is happening when I click on purchase this item. Now we'd like to have here one more button that is going to confirm that we want to purchase it. So to achieve this, we have to create a form and then we have to create inside that form a submit field, which is pretty much the exact same thing that we did in login and register, but this time the action that we are going to take behind the scenes when we post a request is going to be quite different. So let's see how we can do that. Okay, so I will close this and we will go to here, and the location that we have to put the form is going to be right here in items underscore modals. So if we scroll down a bit, then maybe under the question mark, I mean the question itself that asks us if we want to buy this item for that amount of price, we probably want to create a form. So I will just start with creating the tags of it. So it will be form, and then we will say method equals to post, like we did with the login and with the register system. Now I'm going to stop here and I'm going to create those forms in our forms.html. So let's go ahead and see how we can do that. So I will go to our forms.py and we will go to here and we will create two new classes. Now, if you remember, we said that we want to implement the selling process as well. So it is going to be quite same. So this is why I'm going to create here two forms. So I will start by saying class purchase item form. And this is going to inherit from Flask form as well. And the only thing that I like to create here for this stage will be submit field. Okay, so it will be just the exact same line like we did in register or with login. Okay, so this should be enough. Now I will scroll up a bit and we will change the label to purchase item. Okay, so now I can copy this class and I could paste this in and we could change this to sell item form. So this is something that I already create for the future and we could say sell item like that. Okay, so I think we are done with the forms. Now, there might be some other fields that we might create in the form HTML itself, but actually creating the submit fields in the backend side is pretty much enough for me right now. So now I have to send these forms as a context to our templates. So if you remember, if I open our routes.py, then we can totally remember that we send our form instance as an information to our template. So I'm going to do the exact same thing with the items.html, but we will start first with sending the information of purchase item form. Okay, so it is imported up top here, and now I can go just in the first line of our app.route. So I will zoom in a little bit and I can say purchase form equals to purchase item form and create an instance of that like this. Now, if you pay attention, then we already send the items as an information in this route. So we could basically add a comma here and send one more information. And we could say purchase form equals to purchase form like that. And then this purchase form is going to be accessible from the items.html itself. Now, once we save this, then you could remember that this is sent to market.html. Sorry for saying items.html. Basically, I refer to that HTML template. So if I open the market.html, then we have this include in here. So what this means, it means that we could access the purchase form variable within this template as well. So we could go here, and in here we could do the actions that I'd like to do right now. Okay, so we said that the purchase underscore form is accessible from here. Now, if you remember from the previous examples of login and register, in order to perform a post request successfully, we have to create this secure hidden tag that we always initialize. So this is why I will go and write a code like the following. And now I'd like to give this entire div a little bit nicer customization. So to apply this, maybe it is a greater idea to move this text here to an h4 tag or h3 tag, something like that. So I just cut this text from here and I'm going to locate it inside our form. So I will delete the line here and I will go down here and I will open a new h4 tag, for example, and we could paste the sentence back in here. Now we could also say style or class, text dash center, and it will centralize the text itself. Now it is also a great idea to write here even a smaller text than that and to centralize it as well by saying class equals to text center. And we could continue on by saying by clicking purchase you will purchase this item. So this is a great sentence to write here because the user can totally understand that there is no way to go back if he clicks on purchase this item button. Okay, so once we have wrote those h4 and h6 tags, then we can basically continue on with creating the submit field. So if you remember, the way that we can do that is by calling the Jinja syntax, and we could refer to that purchase form variable and we could initialize the submit field that we have created previously, and now I can give it a class like class equals to, and we could say here btn dash outline dash success, so it will give it a green color, and we'd like to initialize the button block as well, so the entire button will be expanded to the entire form. Okay, so I think this should be enough for now, and let's test the results of that. Okay, so I will verify that our website is up and running, and it is, so it is great. And now I can go back to my web browser and close this alert and refresh our page. Now, if I click on purchase this item in here, then we can see that we see this nice title, and also we see the smaller text that says by clicking purchase you will purchase this item. Now I pay attention that it might be a great idea to throw some BRs in here, so we could throw a BR in here and we could do the exact same thing in here. Okay, so now let's test the results of that. And I think now it looks a lot cleaner, so let's continue from here. Okay, so we do not do anything special when we click on purchase item right after we enter the modal. So let's see what we have to do when we click on it. So if we actually go to our PyCharm, then I am already inside the routes.py, and you can see that we initialize this purchase underscore form. Now, regularly, we would like to go with the approach that we have done for the login and the register forms as well. So we probably want to run such a code, which is going to be like purchase form dot validate on submit. Okay, so it is going to be exactly the same thing, but let's not forget the if statement in here. So now everything works fine. Now, before we actually continue on writing some more code within this conditional, I'd like to show you how the purchase form looks like when we print it on the server side. So if we actually go ahead and do only print purchase form when we click on purchase item, let's see the results first so you can understand the following things that I'm going to do right after it. Okay, so once we have done with this, then it is a great idea to go to our website and make sure that it is up and running. And maybe it might be a better idea if we restart it. Great. Okay, so now I will refresh our page, and now I will try to click on purchase this item, and we receive method not allowed. Okay, so we should add this as a methods that are allowed in our decorator. So we already know how to do that. So let's just copy one from our register page. So it will be copying from here and pasting in right there. Okay, so now if we click on purchase this item, then we are totally fine. And now I want to show you the results of that on the server side. Now you can see here that we received the object of the form itself, and there's nothing surprising with that. Now I want to show you a little bit nice trick that we have in class instances, and that is the attribute of underscore dict, like that. So this takes the entire instance and displays it in a nice dictionary, so it will really give you a look of what are the keys and values that are available within this purchase form instance. So once I save this and I go back to our web browser, and let's try to click again on purchase item to really launch this print line, and now I can go back to our terminal, and we could see down here that we got some more information. Now if we search for the key of submit, then you can see that we actually see the submit field as an object itself. Now this means that we have an available key within this instance, so we could access it with a square brackets. So we could go to here and we could delete this from here like that, and we could say submit like a dictionary. Okay, so it is fine to run such a code. And now let's see the results of that again. So I'm going to go and click on purchase this item, and I'm going to go back to here, and now you can see that this is actually translated to an HTML code. So this means that we can pretty much implement the same HTML code hard-coded inside our form, and then this way we will have our custom form that is also going to be accessible within the route itself. Now let's see what I mean by that. Okay, so let me grab this code snippet from here and go back to our items underscore modals, and right before the submit form in here, I'm going to paste this in and customize this a little bit. Now you could remember that this Jinja syntax is actually responsible to this Jinja syntax because this is what we saw. So I'm going to change this to being in ID of purchased item. And I'm also going to change this name to purchased item. And then I'm going to change the type to hidden. Now, when I do this hidden, this means that this input is not going to be displayed within the form. Basically, this is just a background information that we are going to consume in the backend of our application, meaning in the route of market itself. So this is why I put in here hidden. Now, the value for that is going to be the item.name. And the reason I'm doing this, it is because the second that I click on purchase item, I want to know which item the user tried to purchase, so then we can continue on taking the actions that we need to assign this item to that user. So once we have done this, then we can go back to our routes.py and we can take some different actions in here. Now I'm going to change this code from here to something else, and let's try to see what happens if we try to write in here purchased item. Now the reason I may think that this is going to work, it is basically because in the submit field we were able to access it by the square brackets and type in submit as a string. So if we create a field with the name of purchased item, then why it won't be accessible? So let's see the results of that. Now if I actually go to our website and try to click on purchase this item, then we will end up with receiving key error. Now the reason for this, it is because this purchased item is not going to be accessible within the form itself. Besides, it is going to be accessible from an entire different area. Now, as we know already, there are a lot of request types that we create to actually manage this website. So Flask library gives us access to that built-in request object to really have a fully control of how the request object looks like every time that we create some request like get or post. So in that case, we try to create a post request. And then this means that the information about the purchased item is going to be available within the built-in request object. So let's go ahead and import that. Okay, I'm going to go to PyCharm and I'm going to go to that second line where from Flask is, and I'm going to import the built-in object that is request like that. So now that I have done this, basically I can allow myself to go down here and change this code to something like the following. So it will be request dot form. Now the reason that I have this form attribute, it is because the built-in request object already includes a lot of information about all the forms that are built in the request itself. So here I could say something like .get, and here I could access the value of the purchased item. So now that I have done this, then let's test the results of that. Okay, so I'm going to save that file and I'm going to verify that our website is up and running. And I'm going to try to go back to homepage and then go back to get started, which is the market page. And let's try to purchase the iPhone 10. So I'm going to click on purchase item. And once I have done that, then you can see that we see the output of iPhone 10. So that means that we have now fully control and we are aware which item our user tried to purchase. So now we can continue on taking more actions from here. Alright, so if you remember, I said that we are going to fix the always being shown output about the form resubmission thing. So if we actually go to here and we try to refresh this page, then we always will end up with receiving this message from JavaScript that says us that you are in the middle of form submission. So to avoid this, we actually have to get rid of the conditional form.validate on submit. Because the reason this pop-up shows here, it is because every time that we go inside this route, then it tries to submit some form that executes. And the reason is because we don't differentiate between get request to post request. But now that we have fully control of the request object, we can differentiate between those request types. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so I'm going to cancel this and I'm going to go to PyCharm. Actually, I'm going to cut this code snippet from here so we can copy this back later on, and I'm going to delete this entire conditional. And now we can change this to something like the following, which is going to be look like if request dot method equals to post like that. So this is pretty much equal to form.validate on submit, but again, this is going to avoid displaying the output that we saw about form resubmission. So now I can basically go with something like purchased underscore item equals to, and I'm going to paste back in the code that I cut previously. So it is going to be equal to request.form.get purchased item like that. And once we have done this, then we can continue on and we can try to filter the item object based on the value of purchased item. So we could say, let's actually write this in a shortened version. So I will say p underscore item underscore object like that. And we could make this to be equal to item dot query dot filter underscore by. And we'd like to filter by its name. So it will be name equals to purchased item like that. Now, if you remember, I know it has been a long time ago since we applied this, but to actually inspect into the object of the item, we have to execute this dot first method, so we will really have fully access to the purchased item object now. Okay, so now that we have done this, it is a great idea to verify that this object is not none before we continue and take some more actions. So I'm going to say if p item object and then enter this conditional. And now once we have this p item object, we'd like to assign an ownership to the user that is currently logged in. Now we did not see this before, but we have a built-in object that is always going to refer to the current logged in user object. So the way that we can import this is going to be as easy as going up top here and import from Flask login the current user built-in object. So make sure to do that like I did as well. And now I could basically access each user field like we have in our user modules. Okay, so now we should remember how we can assign an ownership to a specific user. So let's go ahead and remember that. Now I'm going to go inside my modules.py and I'm going to show you the item module, which is right here. And if you remember, for each item object, we have the option to assign an owner field to it. So in that stage, we can assign the owner field to the item object that we have filtered out by using the filter underscore by function just a minute ago. So we could basically go back to here and say p underscore item underscore object dot owner equals to, and then I can basically refer to that current user object that we have imported. And now to assign the ownership successfully, I have to put in the ID of the current user. So it will be .id like that. And if you're confused by that line, it is mainly because in modules.py we gave the foreign key of user.id, so our database expects for the ID of the user that we are going to give the ownership to it. So I'm going to go back to our routes.py, and in that stage it is not enough to leave it as it is, because in real life when you purchase some item, it makes great sense to decrease the amount of the budget of the current user. So the way that we can do that is by easily decreasing the budget of the user by basically subtracting the current budget by the item's price itself. So it will be something like the following. So I can say current underscore user dot budget minus equals to the p underscore item object, and then we could basically say dot price like that. And once we have done such a change, we need to execute that db.session.commit line to really perform a save operation towards our database. And this should be pretty much enough to really writing the algorithm of how a user can purchase some item. Okay, so let's test this out. So I'm going to go to our website and I'm going to refresh to homepage. And before that, let's make sure that our website is up and running. Great, so now I can go to our website and we can try to purchase the iPhone 10. Now the next thing that I expect to happen is to really see again the market page, but now I should see the budget of $200. So if I click on purchase this item, and let's actually see the result. Okay, so we see that $200 and this is perfect. Now, I know that there are a lot of steps that we have to complete here, and first of them is to actually remove now this iPhone 10 from here. Now, the way that we can do this is displaying the items that their owner is none only. So let's see what I mean by that. So I'm going to go to our PyCharm and let's zoom out a little bit so we can see what is going on here. And I'm talking about the line that is responsible to send as context to our market.html. So if you pay attention, right here in the item query.all, here is our mistake. Now we'd like to filter those items by owner equals to none, because it makes sense to display those items in available items section only if they don't have an owner. So this is why we should change this line to something like item.query.filter underscore by, and we should filter by owner equals to none. Alright, so now that we have changed this, in the next reload we should expect to not see the item that I purchased. So if you remember, I purchased actually the iPhone 10, and now if I actually refresh this page, we again see that resubmission output, but don't worry, we said that we want to totally differentiate between get to post request, and we did not write in a conditional that is looking like equals to get. So this is why we still see this message, so don't worry about that. And let's actually go back to home and then we could go to market. Now you can see that we only have one item that is available on market. Now, one more thing that we'd like to implement here is to basically display a message that we purchased some item. So we could flash a success message or something like that. So let's go ahead and fix this. So once we commit our changes, we could say flash, and we could raise a message like congratulations, you purchased. And now we could refer to the variable of the item name by changing this to formatted string, and we could say p item object dot name, you purchased item object dot name for, and we could specify the price of the item itself. So we could say p item object again, and we could refer to that price attribute. So this should be great to really flash the message itself. Now, I said that we should fix the resubmission output that we see always, so let's go ahead and fix that. And the way that we can fix this is as easy as going down here and to conditional this up, like if request dot method equals to get, and then we could basically execute those lines only if the request type is get, and this should be enough to really not see that confirm resubmission output that we see always. So if we want to verify that, then we could now refresh the page, and you can see that now it is totally fine and it works correctly, and we don't see that form resubmission output. Okay, so now we are going to continue on to adding some more security layers in here. And now think about it. If I am going to click ahead to that purchase this item, then it will probably end up purchasing it because we don't have any logic implemented that says if the budget is actually not greater than the item object price, then raise an error. We don't have a logic like that. So this is why we should write some logic to prevent from our users to have the ability to purchase an item that their budget is not enough for it. So this is why we should write some more Python code. So I'm going to go here, and now we could basically imagine a code that is going to say something like if current user can purchase. Okay, so executing a conditional before we actually assign the ownership could be something really great and amazing. So this is why what we could do in that case is writing some function in our user module that is going to receive the item object as an argument, and we could really verify that if the user's budget is not greater than the item object price itself, then we should prevent from them to purchase this item. So this is why I'm actually going to remain this code in here, but you could guess that we don't have such a method yet. But let's go ahead and create it. So I'm going to go inside our modules.py, and I'm going to scroll up to our users, and we could write some more functions, I mean methods in here. So we could say def can purchase, like we wrote in the routes.py, and I'm going to receive as an argument item object. So it will be item underscore obj, something like that. And we could basically return self dot budget greater or equal than item object dot price. So by doing this, I'm returning a boolean value that is basically going to return true or false, and this step is going to really verify that the user could purchase this item. So once we have this in here, then it is a great idea to go to our routes.py, and this now needs an argument. So the argument is for sure going to be the p item object, like that, and this should be enough to really verify that our users could purchase this item. So now if we don't hit this conditional, then it quite makes sense to go here in else statement and raise one more flash message that is going to say, let's actually scroll up a bit before we write this message, And we could basically say, unfortunately, you don't have enough money to purchase. And let's actually refer to the object itself in here, and we should change this to formatted string. And now we could say p item object dot name, like that. And now we should add some categories to both of these flash messages. So here we should say category equals to danger, and up top it is obvious that we should say category equals to success, like that. Okay, so now that we have completed this, there's one more step that we have to complete before we really test this out. Now pay attention to the following code that we have in app.route. So we have request method equals to post, and we execute some lines of code, and we have request method equals to get, and we execute some lines of code. But if you pay attention, we don't send our users to anywhere right after the post request completes. So this is why we should decide where we want to send our users once the entire conditional of if request.method equals to post finishes. So it totally makes sense to grab the indentation in here and redirect our users back to this exact route, so the user could really continue on purchasing some items. So I'm going to say here return redirect, and I'm going to launch the URL underscore for built-in function, and I'm going to write here market underscore page. Okay, so this really should be enough to test the entire flow. So I'm going to verify that our website is up and running, and it is. And now I can refresh our website. And now we should expect for a red colored message if we try to purchase the laptop, because we only have $200 left. So if we click on purchase item, then you can see that we receive this output that says, unfortunately, you don't have enough money to purchase laptop. We could add an exclamation mark to here to really make it nicer, but the point is it works and this looks great, and we actually completed the entire process of how we can assign an item to a user that is logged in. Okay, so one more thing that I'd like to do before we close out this topic is to moving those 3 lines of code into being a method inside our item module. So if you imagine a situation, it could have been a lot nicer if we don't have those 3 lines of code, and besides that we could have a code that is going to look like p item object dot assign ownership, something like that. Or basically this could also be dot buy. Okay, so anything that you like will do. So let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so I'm going to undo here several times to really not ruin things out in here, and we are going to create an additional method inside our items module, and this will be responsible to turn the entire flow of this items route to a lot nicer. So I am going to go to our modules.py, and I'm going to create a method this time in the item module itself, because now we should assign an ownership to a specific user. So it is going to be something like the following. So we could say def by, and we could receive a parameter that we will name it user, and the lines of code that I'm going to be executed in here is pretty much going to be the same as in routes.py. Besides, we are going to change the p item object to self. So I'm going to cut this out from here, and I'm going to paste this in under by, and every place that we see p item object is going to be changed to self. So for that and for that we should change to self, and for the user we should replace those with the user that we are going to fill in as an argument. So now that we have this method which we name it by, we could basically execute it by only going here and say p underscore item object dot by, and we only have to pass in the current user object, so it will be just typing in here current user, and we pretty much done with the entire process. Okay, so now to actually test this out, we have to create a new user because it will save us some time, because the JSC6 user is having currently $200, and we'd like to test this with a new user that is going to have as default $1,000. So we could log out for a minute, and you can see that we see this informative message, which is perfect, and we could register with a new user. So I think this will be JSC8 that time, and we could put in some valid information, and we could create the account. Okay, so we are inside the market page, and now we only want to test if this change and moving the code to models.py is going to work for us. So I'm going to click on purchase item, and now you can see that we see this message that we see you purchased laptop for $1,000, and I see that we forgot the dollar sign in here, and now you can see that we don't have any items remaining in this available items on the market section. So this is perfect, and the budget is updated as well to $0. So really the entire flow is starting to work, and this is perfect. Only I will just change this message to being with a dollar sign, and this is going to be as easy as adding it in here, and this is now perfect. Okay people, again a lot of information that needs to sink in probably. We have done pretty much the most complex thing in this entire series, but I hope that you understood everything correctly, and as usual, if you have any questions, raise them down below so I could answer you. And if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button and also consider subscribing to my channel, and I will see you in the next and the last episode.